Good morning all and welcome to a bracing seafront here at Old Hunstanton on the Norfolk coast. It's been a couple of years since we've been here and trekked through the Norfolk Dunes. Usually get the timings wrong here, but I'm pretty confident I got it right this time, so should be a good trip. I'm going to get off the bracing sands now and cut into the other side of the dunes, and I'll see you there in a minute. That's better. Out of the wind. So if you come to Old Hunstanton and you think, tell you what, I'll plonk the wife on the beach, or the husband on the beach, and head off down the dunes for 5 minutes to find some orchids, forget it. It's quite a lengthy trek. The orchids are quite a walk along from Old Hunstanton, and you'll do a few miles to get the best out of this place, but it's well worth it. I've been doing about 20 minutes now out of Old Hunstanton. I can remember the first time I came, it was getting quite demoralising because I got to this point and it seemed to be a long trek and hadn't seen a single orchid. But they actually reside in what I call the scrapes, the sort of shallow depressions that sit behind the dunes, not in the dunes. And there's a number of these depressions, not too many, but 3 or 4 big ones. And it's in those scrapes where the orchids exist, and we're coming up to the first one. Yep, I can see some colour at last. Southern Marsh orchid, of which there are many here. They got a classic dumpy little Southern Marsh orchid that you get all around these dunes. I'm going to be looking in a minute in hope for the white form of Southern Marsh orchid, which is very rare. But at one point there were 3 of them in this scrape. There were none last time, but fingers crossed they might be back. And there you go, number 1. The white form of the Southern Marsh orchid. These are very rare, very hard to find. I've got a funny feeling we're going to find a few in this scrape. And there you go, there's number 2. Great to see them again. Little group of pyramidal orchids. Mixed bag there, that's Grandees hybrid, Southern Marsh, common spotted leaves. Nice pale form of the Southern Marsh orchid. Usually get a few of these around the dunes as well. Common Twayblade for the collection. I'm sure we'll find a few more of these further along. This is the early marsh orchid Coccinea form. One of my favourite orchids, as you probably know by now. Surely not. That is Southern Marsh Orchid White Form number 3. That equals the record here. That's a bit special. A nice delicate little pink Southern Marsh Orchid. Although they're not out yet, although they're not too far away, so there's a slim chance we might catch one further along. These are Marsh Hellebrine. There's a good head of Marsh Hellebrine in this scrape, probably 100 or so. Well, that's almost unbelievable. That's probably the best of the white Southern Marsh orchids. This is number 4. I have never seen 4. It is a very rare orchid to find 4 of them in one scrape at one site. That's pretty remarkable. That's an interesting one. From the distance I thought this is a definite hybrid, but there's no spots on the leaves. So on the face of it, it's just a pure Southern Marsh, but those markings are as much common spotted as Southern Marsh, so I think it might still be a hybrid, but without spots on the leaves. Very strange, that one. I've got to jump over the fence onto the golf course because they always have some decent Southern Marsh here. This one catching my eye in the distance is quite a bold one. Yeah, well worth jumping the fence for. A nice pure Southern Marsh orchid with a slightly paler one behind it. Another one, ridiculous. Never seen one on the golf course side of the fence before. That's what, 5? Amazing. And that is number 6. And what a clunker that is. Beautiful white Southern Marsh orchid. Superb. Another nice cockinea early marsh. It looks like these are going over, so I'm going to have to work hard to find a pristine one. But that's quite nice. Still got good colour in it. Salt marshes. I used to think there was bound to be orchids down there. It just looks right for marsh orchids and the like. But it is salt marsh and they don't grow down there. You won't find any orchids as a challenge. I've never found any orchids down there, and one assumes they don't grow in or around salt water. You need to stay this side of the dunes where it isn't salt water. That is a rare form, a white form of the golf ball orchid. You don't get many of these. I get bored. I get bored on the long walk sections. I don't really. It's a wonderful place to walk along. Great views, weather's good, even though they said it would rain. I was just waiting to bump into scrape number 2. Don't think it could match scrape number 1 with those 6 white Southern Marsh orchids. That is madness, absolute madness. But there'll be something good to come, I'm sure. Right, 52 minutes since we left the golf course, off brisk walking. So it's quite an exercise, this one. But this on the left up ahead, on the horizon there, is scrape number 2, if I recall. So hopefully we'll be back on the orchids in a second. Don't know if my memory's playing tricks with me, but I'm not finding any orchids in here. I'm sure I recognise it. I think it used to be damper than this. There used to be almost a pond up ahead around which there were bee orchids, but I know there were no bee orchids here 2 years ago when I came. Spoke too soon. Just a bee orchid, but it's one for the collection from the site, so that's good. Might be one or two more here in a minute. Have a look. I can't find any more. At least we've got the one. Might only seem a few seconds since we left that golf course. It's actually been 1 hour and 22 minutes, and I have not seen, apart from that bee orchid, haven't seen a single orchid. Been through a couple of scrapes that I seem to remember were full of orchids and were damp and they're crispy dry and there's nothing in there. I haven't given up yet. I'm coming back on a different trajectory, and yeah, I've not given up. I'm still confident we'll find something, but yeah, it's a long trek to find absolutely nothing, so just want to see an orchid. Well, it certainly ain't dry down there, and I can see some orchids in the foreground. That'll do me, thank you very much. Kind of what I was looking for, a scrape full of coccinea early marsh orchids. None of them looking particularly healthy, but I'll grab what I can. That's an interesting one on the face of it. It's an early marsh orchid, but the markings on the flowers possibly hint at a bit of southern marsh. Could be a hybrid. Could be an incarnata early marsh. I was going to say it could be a faded coccinea, but I don't think it is, because the flowers opening at the top are the same colour. So it's a question mark hybrid. Otherwise, it's the incarnata early marsh, which are quite rare here. They see these as a lot rarer than the coccinnias, and as I've said before, I'd swap them any day. I keep thinking these coccinnias have gone over, but actually it's quite a few of them are only just opening. It's a nice vibrant lower flower there. There aren't too many that are as eye-catching as I've seen them before, but maybe that's my imagination. It's still good to see. That's a decent one. Probably the best I've seen so far. It was a nice little area. Saved my day in terms of the coccinnias. I knew there'd be at least one area where they were rampant, and we found one. There's a beastie. I'm going to tell me what that is. It's a big one. Ooh, he flies. That's a big one. Whatever it is. That's a pale form of the coccinea. Otherwise, a faded form of the coccinea early marsh orchid. Such a pretty orchid at the end of the day. I wish there was a lot more of these nearer to Peterborough, but there aren't. It's about as close as you can get, really. Be nice to see a few southern marsh orchid. I haven't seen a proper southern marsh orchid now for, well, an hour and a half, and this place is famed for them. Used to be huge numbers, but yeah, struggling at the moment. This is a familiar part of the site, I'm pretty sure. Probably turn out to be blank again, but I think this is where the southern marsh orchids used to be in good numbers. Hopefully still are. Don't see a whole lot of colour. There's a little bit of colour down there. I think it's another early marsh. There you go. Very nicely coloured southern marsh orchid. Only a little one. That's a very nice Coccinea early marsh. One of the better ones we've seen. Another southern marsh orchid. I was right, I do remember this field. There was a lot more than this before, but grass is a bit longer. There's a few in here. I'll settle for that. Not sure if you can see the markings on that leaf or leaves down there, spotted. So that's a southern marsh orchid, cross common spotted. Grandice hybrid, just a little one. Actually take two, because that actually could be a common spotted orchid. The markings look quite pure for common spotted. It's not a hollow stem either, so I'll take that one back and say it's a common spotted orchid. It's just a colour palette that threw me. Plenty of these Coccineas showing up in this scrape, if I can call it that. I was only thinking earlier I hadn't seen a definite common spotted. That's a definite common spotted, very nicely marked. More and more Coccinea early marsh orchids. Must be 100 plus in this scrape. That is a clonker. Really, really nicely coloured. What a glorious morning. A glorious way to spend a morning. That's it now. Legs need a rest. It's a long slog, you know, there's a lot of miles put into this one. You've got to put the miles in to find where the orchids are. They're growing like clusters, you know, they're not spread out. It's not a Ken fig, you know, they grow in scrapes, little hollows, you just got to find them. But hard slog or not, you know, we found southern marsh. We found the southern marsh hybrid with common spotted. We found seven white southern marsh orchids. That is just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. We found the Coccinea early marsh, had to find that. There were plenty of those. I think we found an incarnata early marsh, pyramidal orchid, common spotted orchid, even found a bee orchid. That's a novelty for this place. And I think that's it. Give it a couple of weeks and you'll have Marsh Hellebrine. But otherwise that's the complete set. So slog or not, glorious weather, lovely, lovely walk in a lovely, lovely place. And we found everything I could have hoped for. So really pleased with that. So thank you very much for joining me. I will be out again tomorrow, back up in Peterborough. Looking forward to this one. I've been holding back on it, so it should be a good site visit. So hopefully I will see you probably at some time on the video over the weekend.